I do my best to stay in a non-polarized neutral state. But I love it when I get a chance to experience ascended masters about breathing love and breathing peace and breathing, experiencing being calm, right? And experiencing being in a state of love and joy, dancing in spirit with the radio waves. And so naturally, this goes all the way back to when I was a little kid of having to wear duct tape because of the what is really basic logic. It stands to reason that if you're a chip running a processor, which is a cell membrane, that you want your numbers to balance out. Your geometry is going to balance out, which means your cells are going to balance out, so you're experiencing being balanced. Yeah? That means our consciousness is experiencing being balanced, which means we're not experiencing any distortions, no broken arrows, no turbulent circuits. It means we're all experiencing being one because it began with the first one. Now, that's basic math logic. Right? Okay, so when you communicate that as a child, you shouldn't experience an argument by another computer, right? And so I was listening to this one gentleman who's a Buddha, Maharaja, talked about compassion, and he was using basic math logic by virtue of what I heard yesterday was somebody else who said, taking responsibility for what it is that we do with our energy because we're going to get the feedback. Okay, so when I was a child, I've mentioned this before, it's like checking boxes of everything that doesn't represent what love is, because you know that the future that's going to be experienced by the method in which we're experiencing what they do versus what we do doesn't have a future, because you realize they're in a hole, which means they can never catch up and pay their debt as a result in the use of their energy. Right? What they experience in the future, like impurities, the air, right? The water, the soil, everything's contaminated. So if you're experiencing yourself in a contaminated zone, then what do you do in a contaminated biohazard zone? Quarantine it. So you know what a fractal mind virus is, right? So we know what a virus is in a computer, right? So if you want to go back to the beginning, when the first template was generated, where you're experiencing the 13th transharmonic, right? To experience perfect balance, that means that all the cells are in perfect balance because all the cells are experiencing being happy with a breath of Kemalawati. So you know when you're running a computer, a biofield computer, and you're experiencing perfect balance, that means that you're map reading the terrain of everything that isn't in balance because the math doesn't work. And that's as a result of what? Distorted communications, distorted plasma waves. And why it's so simple to know why water worlds, why sound works in water. Because it's natural that the natural form and flow of creation energy spheres is seeking the pathway of what? Least electrical density. Resistance. Resistance. So that's, you see how rivers work that way. Cut banks, right? Which means I'm not having to do any work to experience being loved, which is the law of least effort to experience eternity. That's the simplicity of experiencing basic math logic, which means we're not doing anything to harm ourselves by virtue of what we do to others. Yeah. Which would be the air, the minerals, everything that's alive and living. So I saw this little pop-up that said that the tale of two timelines looking glass. So I just make it real simple. Living life and anti-life. Or if you will, the living crystic spiral that goes on forever, gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. Right? And those that are feeding on your electrons because they're in a hole. So you have an anti-crystic spiral and you have a crystic spiral. So you know the torque speed differential between one and the other, right? And that's called knowing one from the other. That means knowing the crystic spiral because you're experiencing the crystic spiral because you're not experiencing any distorted waves. Because your math works because you're in balance. Now that's how simple it is as a child. Okay, which means it doesn't take a 40-minute seminar or a 3-hour presentation or going to class every day for 3.5 hours, 5 days a week, trying to learn how it works. atoms seek to be in balance, naturally. Which means consciousness naturally seeks to be in balance, which means every cell that is communicating to another cell that's sensing information with its antenna with another antenna is experiencing balance in the waves. Hey, we're in balance. We're playing music together. That means that the bands, which represent the consciousness, is experiencing what? An equilibrium state unto itself, which means I'm equal unto all I'm giving love to. So it began with the first atom sphere, first crystalline spiral. That's as simple as it gets, because that's basic math logic. That means the numbers don't lie. Yeah. Have a great day. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.